the Manchester meeting. It's clearly connected with the fusion discussions, but it's about partyism as such. Um, Encouraging numbers, 38, 40 people there, encouraging age profile, mostly young. I was one of the oldest people there. There were a lot of people sort of 20s, 30s. We had a plenary discussion which I spoke, and Kat Ryland spoke quite well, I thought, and Ed Potts did a good talk in between, and then we had workshops. Workshops, I must admit, it was workshops have the advantage that everybody gets a chance to get their oar in slightly, but these were the first set of workshops. We had 6 questions to be discussed in 15 minutes, and the second set of workshops, we had 5 questions to be discussed in half an hour. And some the workshop I was in was reasonable, I thought, but we certainly didn't even attempt to cover all the questions which we were posed for us to discuss. So it's that as a method, I think, is uh, not so great. It was good, positive mood, positive activity. I'm not going, but that method I wasn't so keen on. This morning we've had I'm not sure what number of the meetings between fourth, third, fourth meeting. Jack has just been pointing out fourth meeting. This is the first one I've been at because we decided we should have 2 present from each group. The first stage of this, the Prometheus comrades are divided on whether to participate in this process or not. They have agreed, which I think is probably sensible, that the people who want to participate in this process should form themselves as a faction to participate in this process. And then we discussed whether, given that Prometheus was who was represented at previous meetings, it was acceptable for the Prometheus faction to be the group represented at this meeting. And we agreed, obviously correctly, that it would. We agreed also to pursue further discussions with the people in Prometheus who don't want to be engaged in this particular process. And then we started on the question of what are the fundamental principles of an organization. We started with very much basics. We aim for communism. We aim for the creation of a mass communist party. We recognize the necessity of internationalism, the uselessness of the idea of constructing socialism in a single country. We aim for need essentially democratic functioning and open debate. But those are very general principles. So then the question is, okay, what more concretely? And of course, CPGB, I put this in the workshop in the Saturday meeting. Somebody needs to stick their head above parapet and propose a draft in order that anybody else can say, okay, that's wrong, this needs to be improved, we need to take bits and replace it, and so on and so forth. And we, CPGB, have stuck our heads above parapet. We've been sticking our heads above parapet with a draft program for the past 30 years. 30 years? Yeah, something like 30 years. We revised it in 2011, 10, 11, and we've revised bits of it, like the the ecology, climate crisis since then. So we do revise it. We put it forward as a draft. We put it forward not on the basis this is a take it or leave it, the complete thing, and so on and so forth. Other comrades, some of the TAS comrades were saying it's too long. We certainly share the view that it should, Jack and I share the view that it should be as short as possible, but we think that the experience of the Soviet Union means that it's unavoidably necessary to say more detail about some questions than was in the Air Force program of 1891 or the program of the Russian Social Democratic and Labour Party of 1903. So we had that discussion. We agreed that the Prometheus faction comrades are just organising themselves so they don't have a definite position on these things, but they're going to discuss and get towards a clearer idea of what they want to say in relation to this discussion. And the TAS comrades similarly are going to discuss among themselves round. We're going to kick off with discussing the CPGB's draft program and identifying, I think, probably things in it which, given that an awful lot of what's in the CPGB draft program is common ground across the left, there's probably a great deal quite a lot in it, which we're not going to need to discuss. But there will be other points so we're looking at points where we have disagreement and discussion to get further. But comrades are working together. Constructively. We hope that we will progress further with the discussions successfully. We also hope that we'll progress further with meeting, if we can, with the no side in Prometheus and see what we can understand what it is that's leading them to say no to it. So that's it. I think shortish report, but not much, nothing more to say.
Thank you, Mike. Would anybody like to ask a question or make a comment on this? What's the next question that's going to be discussed then? Do you know?
Well, we're coming back to the program question. Yeah, and we said actually at the outset that we think that the program question may well take quite a number of sessions for us to work through it, because there's quite a lot of stuff, and even if we produced something which was radically cut from CPGB draft program and was long as the Air Force program, I have, let's find it. Okay, this is the stenographic minutes of the RSDLP conference of 1903. Yeah. The stuff which the far left thinks about is there is a small discussion of what's the basis of membership. Most of this discussion is the long-running Congress, which had to move from Brussels to London in the course of the Congress for reasons of interference and so on, discussion of the draft program. So draft programs, even if they're short draft programs, they take a lot of fucking work to deal with them. And this, I think, is where we're going to be spending quite some time on this discussing program. That's it.
Thanks, Mike. There's been a question in the chat before I bring in Jack. Has it been approached yet whether it's best to either have a merger of organizations or to have individuals join a new organization?
We have discussed this to a limited extent. We were discussing this today, and the issue which is posed is can we want to discuss to the point at which can we fuse the organizations. Yeah? If we can't, if we embark on we're going to issue an appeal to lots of people to come in, on what basis? It's that stage of when we've got something between the three organizations which we can put forward, which is then a stage where we can say, here's the basis which we're inviting everybody to come in on.
Just to underline the point, what we've gone from the 6 questions that we originally adopted, if comrades remember, I think my first report, I can't remember, one of my early reports basically had 6 TAS questions. We basically said, okay, that's not going to work for us. So we're not going to go to number 2 and then number 3 and then number 4. What we're talking about is the CPGB draft program. So that's going to be on the agenda 2 weeks' time, and we wait to hear what comrades have to say. So we can't anticipate what they say. We obviously agree with them that things should be as short as possible, but we would also argue, to use the phrase, they also have to be as long as necessary. And the temptation always in these circumstances to add. It's very difficult to pare down. Either way, we'll have that discussion and we'll see where it goes. I'm very confident on that. I also just wanted to add in, I'm not trying to blow your trumpet, Tina, but I did speak alongside Kat and, yes, Stan wants to talk, Kat and Nick Rack on Thursday. And so this is the Y marks. And yeah, there were 40 comrades in Manchester, and there were, roughly speaking, at maximum about 100 on the Y marks call. And I thought, again, that was a very useful meeting. Has to be said that some of the audience was of a mixed bag. But I did think that the 3 speakers actually were all singing from the same hymn sheet. I think there is very close political agreement there. I could be wrong. I wait for 2 weeks and to hear what I suspect actually, Mike, that I could be closer to Nick and Kat, for example, on the right of nations to self-determination than I am with you. So we wait and see. So I can be in unity with Mike McNair. I can certainly be in unity with comrades who've got this nuance or that nuance. We're not looking for agreement, we're looking for acceptance, and that will be decided by a democratic vote. Jara asked about merger. We have to wait and see. We just have to go down this road. And ultimately we are we would be bound by what a conference decides. So we can go into a conference thinking that this is X, Y, or Z. If the conference decides it's F, then it's F, and we would be bound to accept that vote. That's the idea, but that we're not there. So we need to have these discussions. All I'm really reporting is that it's modest, but nonetheless, there's momentum there, there's positivity there. We've got a division on Prometheus. We don't know why, but it is worth noting that amongst those that want to pursue the discussion, there are those in RS21, which is very positive because that opens up again a new audience for this process. So yeah, things are, let's not get overexcited, but things are very positive at the moment. Yeah.
What I say now is not either a product of the discussions or a CPGB position. This is just me. You know, as far as a mass communist party is concerned, the point of we are for a mass communist party is we want to see the Labour Party replaced altogether by a communist party with millions of members. That's what it means to say we want a mass communist party. Yeah. As opposed to what we want is, and this is the common position of the far left in general, we want a broad front mass party, which is a, quote, class struggle party, or a, quote, left reformist party, or a centrist, but a whole load of different names. Steve Freeman gives it the name Commonwealth Party, which is what? And so on and so on. That perspective, we reject the perspective that what we need, or for that matter, is a communist fraction within the Labour Party, pushing the Labour Party to the left, and so on and so forth. We reject that perspective. We want to see a communist party of the scale, proportional to population of the old PCI or of the PCF at its height or of etc. It's all bigger, you know. That's what we mean by a mass communist party. Now, then the second question, yes, we're not on that. That's not on the agenda. And the question is how you get there. And the guys who argue for the halfway house party argue that the broad front party is that the way you get there is you build a broad front party, and then at some future date, once the broad front party has been thoroughly built and is not at risk of being blown up by leftists intervening, the left gradually somehow leads the broad front party into becoming a communist party. We reject that perspective as well, because it's basically delusional, and it's what the left has been doing in ever decreasing circles. In a sense, actually, it was already the policy of Graham Bash and his co-thinkers in Labour Briefing in 1969. But certainly since the 1980s, the left has been doing ever repeated attempts at these broad front parties, not just in this country, in France, in Brazil, in Italy, and it's disastrous policy. Okay, so that's a rejection of that. So then the step is, what can we do? Can we do? The point that Stan made is right, that in terms of this regroupment, we are not going to leap over the big Trotskyist and official communist organizations of around 1,000 each and suddenly launch ourselves into a party of thousands. Yeah. What we're possibly creating a larger and more effective and more dynamic campaign for a communist party. What we need to do is to break through rather than jump round or jump over, but break through the sectarianism of the major and actually some quite small Trotskyist groups like Workers' Power, RS21, etc. All of these groups have this characteristic that they're struggling to go out to the masses and not talk to ourselves, and in consequence, they don't educate. They can't accept effective factional struggles and open debate. I stress open debate because RS21, quite plainly, we had comrades commenting at the Saturday meeting that RS21, they have differences of opinion and so on and so forth, but open public debate, you know. And then, but if we break through that sectarianism at the far left, then we can create a party on the scale of the old official Communist Party, that is between 20 and 50,000. That may sound like a big jump, but actually put the 4 organizations of 1,000 together, or even large fractions of the 4 organizations of 1,000 together on the basis of a dynamic of unity and open culture of political openness, a rapid expansion is possible. And that's visible with the Scottish Socialist Party. It wasn't, it starts with small groups. They're unified together on the bad basis, which of course then sets them up to collapse a few years later. But there's an explosive growth within Scotland of that organization. So that's the possibility. It's not right now we leap to an organization of millions. It's not we issue a public appeal, and as long as we've got Jeremy or whatever it is, we can organize the millions. The millions out there, the silent millions out there, John Rees appealed to as if we shut up about the Republic and shut up about abortion for respect, we can represent the silent millions. No, that's not it. So that's that. Red lines. I've written about this previously. can't remember, trying to remember which one it was in this series that I've written in response to the Prometheus articles about the AWL. Yeah. Oh, it's in relation to the AWL. The problem, in essence, is the Social Democratic Party of Germany, and indeed the other parties of the Second International, could be massive revolutionary organizations and contain within themselves revisionist, right-wing, pro-imperialist forces. They still needed to do what the SPD did do. The SPD booted out, its Congress booted out the right-wing editorial board of Vorwärts in 1903-4, and there was a fight about that at the party congresses 1904 and 1905. Vorwärts is the party of the paper of the party, not the paper of the Berlin branch, which was controlled by the right. And equally, they booted out, they deselected MPs who voted for, who went soft on the naval budget and voted for Navy estimates, and said, our constituents, my constituents back German defense. Yeah. So on that scale, and indeed, actually, on that scale, we could perfectly well have an organization like the AWL as an opposition within a large organization. In the circumstances where we are now, the present situation, we're talking about very small groups. And the AWL proposes to the small groups at the far left, the unification of the small groups at the far left, on a minimal basis of unity, which is minimal enough to include the AWL. And this is a situation where the AWL has been backing US foreign policy in the invasion of Iraq and over and over and over ever since the 1980s in relation to a soft Zionist line that the AWL as an organization is the pioneer of the anti-Semitism smear campaign, which is the basis of the witch hunt in the Labour Party. They are the leader, they're not the sort of absolute leaders in the sense that it was picked up by the British state and run through the mass media, but basically it was a set of AWL arguments which were picked up and run and so on and so forth. And in that situation, actually, if we were to build an organization on terms that the AWL could be part of it without denouncing their own positions, yeah, we would discredit ourselves. We would make ourselves, it would be totally and utterly inappropriate. That the question of turfs, the issue of difference in substance, in my opinion, is what counts as turfism, because it's okay. That's another debate, and I don't want to. We're going to have, hopefully, Comrade Roxy Hall and I are going to be having a discussion of transliberation at a future meeting of this meeting, but and hopefully we can make progress on that. But there's a how shall I put this? It's there's a school of opinion according to which it's necessary to no platform anybody who raises any difference with a certain particular line on trans rights, and that is. I think that's actually on that basis, it's like the people who would say, and there are people who would say that because we promote Moshe Makover's arguments in relation to Israel-Palestine, that we're soft Zionists. There are people who say that. And that I'm absolutely not willing to buy. There's a difference, it seems to me, fundamental difference between the AWL campaigning on anti-imperialism for the for 30 years, 40 years now, and differences on the question of what strategic way forward for Palestine. That's it.
I think myself, in a mass party, right-wing ideas, revisionist ideas, to give them a particular label, that will spontaneously generate itself, right? So our approach is to say, well, what's the best conditions to fight? What's inevitable? That's why we put a particular stress on openness. What's the name that we've been given at the moment? Being sort of picky. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, being nasty.
Snarky.
What's it?
Snarky. Somebody at the
Snarky.
Saturday meeting said we
We're
were too
the
snarky in our
snarkies,
comments
right?
on other groups.
And what we're arguing is, well, you can call it snarky. We are calling it, this is the best guarantee not to get rid of revisionist ideas. It's the best way of fighting them because they're going to be spontaneously generated. So we need that open culture. We need that culture of criticism, of where you don't hold, you don't say, I'm not going to criticize you because you're a comrade, while that comrade comes out with dodgy ideas. So I think there's a difference between that and starting off with, could we incorporate the AWL? Because I would answer that by simply saying no, full stop. That we wouldn't be looking to incorporate the AWL. And in that sense, I come to this question of Zionists. It would seem to me, I mean, that, if you take what Tina said, well, there's the ABCs, and I went, okay. But to me, politics is an art. So rather than starting off with, we wouldn't allow this lot, we wouldn't allow them, we would draw a line that you need to approach this as part of political practice, rather than saying, when we're a mass party, we would do this, we would do that. Look, if for example, this is a very optimistic example, here we are, we're forming our mass party, Israel no longer exists. The Israeli masses, the Israeli Hebrew masses have voted to merge voluntarily with an Arab Socialist Federation. Well, then under those circumstances, if someone had some bloody crazy idea about a Jewish homeland, I'm not going to make too much of it. I would just look at them and go, you've got a bit of a funny idea in your head. But that's not where we're at, is it? Where we're at now is Israel is about to go in for mass ethnic cleansing, potential genocide. It's an ally of US imperialism. No, so we need to be concrete. So I would say that what we're after in this process is most certainly agreement on ABCs. Mike's already said internationalism, commitment to a mass communist party, no national roads to socialism. Well, that's a pretty good ABC. So we're saying, but there is the XYZ. And we're not asking for agreement or anything other than acceptance when it comes to the XYZs. Where the Fs and the middle bits are, and that's political practice. We have to see. So I'd also make the point that in terms of the history of social democracy, I mean, it has kicked out the right. Its most notable feature, I would say, though, is kicking out the anarchists. That's what the Second International did at its Congress. That's what the French effectively did, not least with Marx's and Gust, wasn't it? Their program for the French Workers' Party. This is about them separating themselves from the anarchists. But I would say that if you take one of the problems with German social democracy, but social democracy of the Second International, is it was too soft on the right. And looking back at it, we should have been, if we could rerun history, I would argue at least, that when it came to the Fabians, when it came to precisely tolerating, what do they call them? Wouldn't have been social chauvinists, but anyway, the opportunist, revisionist wing. I think actually that, if we're going to draw a lesson, that we needed to be drawing the same sort of lines of division with them as we did with the anarchists. Right, that would be my argument. But again, this is about political practice. Lastly, Tina put up on chat that a lot of comrades on the left view the trans issue equivalent to anti-imperialism, or rate it higher than anti-imperialism. Again, I come back to Mike in that sense. I mean, what is the trans issue? Is it agreeing with everything Comrade X says on it? I mean, we've had a situation of where we've been accused of transphobia. I've looked, for example, at our draft program, and it says no discrimination against trans people. Is that transphobia? So I would simply reject the charge and say that they've got a special definition of the trans issue that is overemphasizing that particular issue, where there ought to be room for legitimate debate around that question. So, for example, I'm going to finish here. So, for example, when it comes to the woman's question, we've had debate about working hours and pregnant women and nursing mothers. To me, comrades who said that women should be allowed to volunteer if they're heavily pregnant for double shifts, I think they're wrong, but I wouldn't call it, from my angle, a splitting issue. I wouldn't be out to expel someone for that. I would simply say, comrade, you're just damn well wrong, and we should fight to be a majority on that one. So this is politics is an art. And in terms of Tina's first question, mass party, it's not when we go from 100,000 to 101,000. It's a bit like, what's a bald man? How many hairs do you have to lose before you're officially classified as bald? To me, what it's about is, do you lead the vanguard of the working class? And again, that isn't a numbers question. It's a political question. So in a country like Britain, in order to come to power, we would certainly need a party of hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million, maybe more. But we're not giving it as a figure. Do you lead the working class? That's the question. That is a mass communist party. Was the Bolsheviks in 1917, we're not talking about February, but in summer, was it a mass party? It was a mass party, not just because of the number of recruits that it had won, it led the working class. It was the vanguard of the working class. So that's how I would give it a political answer rather than a numerical. We can illustrate it, we can give it color with a numerical figure, but it's a political concept, not a mathematical or arithmetic concept.